And welcome. Thank you everyone for joining us today. We're going to take a look at mosquito data and using this opportunity to invite you to be our focus group and to join a discussion about data literacy. And as an example, we have our first data bite and a data challenge. So we'd like your feedback on both of those before we go any further with it. With that being said, we'll go to the next slide. And so we'll have a mosquito observation update, an update on the Mission Mosquito Notebook, and then we'll talk about mosquito habitat mapper data and the challenge. Okay.
All right, let me move stuff out of my window so I can see here. So we like to share every month the number of observations that have been taken from the very beginning, and then comparing, well, not comparing, contrast, and then also look at the observations that were taken last month. Today, when you do the data challenge, you're going to be learning how to get in and do a little massaging of the globe visualization data. So that's what I've done here. I've simply gone on to the Globe Viz website, and I took a screenshot, and what I entered at first was I wanted to see all of the globe, all of the mosquito habitat mapper data, the pictures, the when you're taking pictures, or if you're emptying, the water container, if you're trying to identify the genera or the genera. And also, if you've been able to do a sample. So we take all of those different types of data, and I could pick one or two of those if I wanted to. I don't have to pick them all. And then I said that I wanted to go from the very beginning of when we started using this tool, which is probably a little hard to see, but it's 5/29/2017, so a little more than 3 years ago. And then I went to as close as I could get to today, and that was November 12th. So I did that entire time, and what we're seeing in this map is we're seeing where mosquito habitat mapper data has been collected around the world in that entire time period. If you look down to the far lower left, which is impossible to read unless you're looking at this through an electron scanning microscope, you would see that it has the total number of observations are 53,140. So pat yourself on the back. That's a heck of a lot of observations. And if we go to the next slide, now I narrowed this field. So now I made it so that we were just looking at the last month. And as you may have found, if you were trying to upload and send data, and I need to remember to go to the Globe Observer app and send in some data that I took last week while things were down, you know that for a whole week we weren't kind of taking and submitting data. So this is probably a little bit lower than it would be kind of artificially. But what we're looking at here was for the last month, so October 12th through November 12th, there were 176 observations. And as you look at this map, you can again see where those observations were taken. So if you don't see your observations or your country represented here, please make some observations, even if it's not active mosquito season. Fortunately, the mosquitoes have largely died off here, except for probably in the metro, in the Washington, D.C. area and inside houses. But I'm still out there on my Mosquito Mondays, walking around and taking my observations. So send your observations in, they all count. And that's it for me.
I'll jump in here next. I'm Liz Burke, part of the team here. And I just want to remind you, if you haven't already looked, you need to go to the Globe Mission Mosquito site and have a look at the Mission Mosquito Science Notebook. It is a resource that we are developing. It's been in development. It will continue to be in development because we're trying to make this a resource that builds and builds and builds and reaches the climactic point of having confidence to go forward with the mosquito habitat mapper as a citizen scientist. Regardless of your age, it's probably directed for those 10, 11-year-olds and above. So that's probably our target, but you could certainly work through it at maybe a few different levels. We're already up to 18 pages and we are building off of that. So far we have a lot of science background in there. We're trying to make it so that a citizen scientist who doesn't have the confidence in entomology to jump in, to let them build their confidence through getting some scientific information and seeing diagrams and making diagrams and answering questions and watching videos and doing analysis of images and that kind of thing. So that's kind of our goal with what we're doing. Our next installment is going to be on the proboscis, the mouth of the mosquito, particularly focused on the female, because you know what she's capable of doing. And so it's in final review at this point. It should be up and on the site before I see you again in December. But we also have other segments also in the queue. And so there's going to be things on classification and doing field work and looking at historical data and what that tells you, and then going out and gathering data and analyzing that data, just trying to build. So what you're even going to see in the rest of this webinar related to getting that data, how to get the data, how to analyze the data, is all going to be reinforced through the science notebook as well. So this will be very informative and will give you some confidence in moving forward in using the notebook. So to those of you that have provided feedback, again, I want to thank you for that. We as a team want to thank you for that. It is very valuable and helpful to our work. If you have not had a chance to do that, please have a look. And if there are suggestions, anything that you think would help us in making this a valuable resource for citizen scientists, please reach out. We see the things that you do, just as Dorian just talked about, from that connection in Brazil. We see what you're doing. You're doing incredible things. We want to hear from you so we can use that as we move forward. So you can reach me at that email address. It's just Liz_Burke, and it's BURCK, so it's a little bit different spelling of that than typically you see, and at strategies.org. So drop me a line. Let me know what you think of the notebook. Any suggestions you have are more than welcome. So thanks, and we'll move on and learn some more about data.
Thank you, Liz. I'd like to introduce Rusty Lowe, our mission scientist, talk about data.
Great. Thank you so much, Cassie. I'm so glad that we have I don't want to say I'm happy with small group, but it's very good that we have a smaller group today, because what we really wanted to do is we wanted to get some feedback and also sort of access the hive mind here and do a little bit of a focus group about what would be most useful for you, your students, or the community members that you work with, or for yourself. What would be the best way for us to help you work with Globe Observer data? So one of the things, I just put this up here because we have a vision of people understanding, sustaining, and improving the Earth's environment and promoting scientific discovery. And so by just using the app and making your observations, you are promoting scientific discovery. But also there is a lot of scientific discovery that happens under the hood when you're looking at the data. And that's what we want to get more people involved in over the next 5 years. We have just finished our first part of this grant. We now have a second period of performance. And so I really wanted to focus as much as we can on getting this data out to people so they can use it, so they can share it with their communities, so they can talk to people in mosquito control or in public health, and even get them to access the data, because it's now available through an application program interface. If you guys are computer nerds like I'm not, you know that as an API. So our data can go into any other database now, which is very exciting. Okay, so I just wanted to say that right now, we have had a Globe Observer campaign now for 3 years, Globe Mission Mosquito, very exciting. And we've really focused on data collection. We have campaigns where people go out and they collect as many pictures of larvae as they can, and we acknowledge that the number of observations, where the observations are found, and this is great. But what is next? And what is next, I would like to see, is for people to then begin to use this data. It's not just for scientists at NASA. It is data that is available for everyone. And that is part of the democratization of science that is occurring with the open data movement that Globe and Globe Observer is very much a part of. Next. So the important thing is here, you guys all know these steps. But the important thing that I want to say is data is not useful unless it is analyzed, unless it is shared, unless it is used. But having said that, we know there are some barriers. You know, accessing any data from any database is fraught with issues and complications. Globe is pretty easy, but it is not an exception. There are also some special things you need to learn in order to use Globe data. And so that's what I was thinking, if you guys are also interested in this idea of something that we might do over the course of the next year, similar to the Mosquito notebook, where we just have a little bit of something that we share every month. Okay, let's go to the next slide, Cassie. And here what I want to say is that, you know, we have Globe Observer data. If you have ever worked with students doing an IVSS project, you know that you can access data in a bunch of different ways. You can go to the Globe Viz system and look at maps. You can download a relational database, a spreadsheet, using the advanced data access system. You can also actually use an API to pull your data out. But one of the things that we have been thinking about is how can we take these observations of mosquitoes and put them on a landscape in such a way that it has some kind of context. Because if you've ever done research projects with Globe data, you know, it's pretty difficult to take a few data points and then say, okay, where's the satellite data? How does it overlap? What does it mean? And one way that we can make that connection a little bit tighter is if we embed our Globe data from mosquitoes in the Globe data from the land cover. Because then, you know, our satellites are up there and they are sensing all different kinds of attributes and characteristics of our landscape around the world, the air, the water, everything. But also, we also are able to get land cover. And, you know, Landsat 9 is going to be coming out next year. And so we really want to make that nice, tight connection. And the other thing is, as part of this data literacy thing that we'd like to promote in our community with Mosquito Habitat Mapper maybe taking the lead, is what tools are available in this open data movement. The world is so different than it was 5 years ago. There are tools out there that allow you to go and look at data at a specific point where you collect the data and analyze it and do an Earth system scale analysis. And so these things are not hard, but you need to know the breadcrumbs of the pathway. And we thought this might be something that we might be able to do for the next little while. All right, next one, please, Cassie. Okay, so I just wanted to give you a quote on what data literacy is, because it can mean a whole bunch of different things. It does mean how to read charts, how to draw conclusions, whether or not data are being used or are being used in a appropriate way. And so data literacy is all the abilities and skills that are required to get data, to process data, to analyze data through assessing it, manipulating it, doing quality control, summarizing it, making an interpretation, and presenting it. So there's lots of different steps there. And That's the whole universe. And we would like to take small bite-sized chunks of that universe and make that a feature of what we do in our webinars, if you think this is a good idea. Okay. Why this is important? There is a famous paper that talks about citizen science creating data at an unprecedented volume and velocity, right? And that's really it. When you see, oh my gosh, you know, over the past year, 3 years, there's been 25,000 mosquito habitat measurements. In Globe Observer, there's been, what, 600,000 measurements, something like that over the course of time. But what do you do with that? It's hard to work with that much data. You need to have some special skills. And so that's what we want to do. And I was thinking, is 600 right? And I was like, oh, good, it's 890K. There you go. So I even underestimated because it's coming in so fast that even my head isn't keeping up. If we look at the next slide, what I'd like to do is just kind of get your ideas. So we have a poll, and using 4 words or less, what are the important data literacy skills that you are interested in? And we have a little bit of time, so we thought we might try doing a pigeonhole. Do you want to explain this, Cassie?
All right, remember I mentioned earlier, this was the part we're going to give it a whirl. If you have your QR code reader on your phone, you can just take a scan of that and it should take you right to the pigeonhole word cloud, allowing you to put in 4 words or less. If you're can open up another window on your computer, just do the URL that's listed right here on www.pigeonhole.at, and it will ask you for a passcode, which is data literacy. And so if you could take a moment, that'll be open until 4 o'clock. So that would be great if you would take a moment to kind of put in words that you think would be representative of what you think of for data literacy skills. There's 2, critical and analytical. So it should show us the word cloud right on the screen. So perfect. There's some more coming in. I feel like an expected parent waiting for something to show up.
And you know how that really is, because Cassie was an expected grandmother until last Monday.
Yes, I did share that with everyone already. So. Oh, thank you very much. I'm so happy that this apparently is working. It must be a little bit of a delay, but I do appreciate everybody being patient with us as we learn some or integrate some new technologies.
I'm excited to see what's going to come out of this.
Yeah, I am too. I think we might be able to come back to this, Rusty, if you'd like to go on to the next slide.
Okay. Okay. So now what we were hoping is that people could, in the chat, expand a little bit further about the skills that we expect our students or our folks that are attending our informal science events, or even our personal selves. What kind of skills do we need to create data products? And data products are the analyses of data. So how do we analyze data? What skills do we need, and what skills do we need to have so that we're able to actually interpret data? So what skills do we need to analyze and interpret data? So I would love it if a few of you would just put some ideas in the chat, because then we can use that as a basis for a little bit of a discussion about this. Michael, thank you. So pattern recognition, particularly when you're working with big data, That's it's basically a whole different research paradigm, and recognizing patterns in data is a way to begin your analysis. It's actually the predominant way. Sometimes you have to work with the data to get it so that you're actually able to see those patterns. But I'm so glad you brought that up, because for me, that's number one. And yes, you need to be able to converse and talk to each other about data. And so that's a really good point too, Shannon.
I might have said perseverance.
Yeah. Yeah, and statistics is another important piece too. There are a lot of relatively straightforward statistical procedures that you can apply to a data set that will help you to understand whether or not the data is of sufficient quality or is well paired with the question that you have in mind. So statistics is something that I think that we actually can deal with, at a very sort of upper level, so that we can just sort of begin to talk about that, just dip our toe in the water, as it were, in these data bites that we're thinking about. Lisa has been thinking a long time, and she has put everything else in there. Thank you, Lisa. That is wonderful. So she is obviously someone who knows a little bit about working with data that is available from digital data sources. And yes, I would really like to talk about all these things in our if we did have a data series. In fact, I was just on a call this morning. We are Globe Observer Mosquito Habitat Mapper is part of a National Science Foundation grant that will be using our data to do some machine learning and using artificial intelligence to identify habitat sites and mosquitoes. So absolutely, these are things that are really important today. And they're not skills that I had when I got my PhD 20 years ago. Good. Okay, please continue to add your ideas to this list, because this is really, really useful. But for everybody else here, if there's one sort of basic thing that you would hope that you would like to have supported by a little bite of data literacy, what's one thing that you would like to be able to share with people that you work with about data? So for me, I'm going to say my thing right now is data quality. Anybody else? It's possible that no one here is interested in data, or that people know everything. But thank you so for all these great ideas. Aha, great, Shannon, timelines. That's really important too. Thank you. Okay, let's move on. Please continue to add to this list as ideas come to you, because we will capture this list. And the quality of data, the clarity with which we are able to describe our data, these are all things that are incredibly important. And I just wanted to show you the kind of data that is available to you if you want to do some data analyses with Globe data. One of the things that is kind of a little bit of a limitation, if you read the literature about data use and data quality, when they talk about citizen science projects, a limitation, it's also a strength, but a limitation analysis is the fact that it's collected opportunistically. That means anybody, anytime. That's how we get the velocity and volume of data. But it does put some barriers in to how we can actually interpret that data. So there are already some ways that we can actually address that. For instance, you can drill into, this is a Globe Viz from, I think I downloaded this earlier this week. You could drill into where we have data and see where you have a whole bunch of points, and you can do a local analysis. That's going to give you an analysis with some potentially reproducible outcomes. Over here in Thailand, I went in and looked at some data that's been collected using the Globe Mosquito Habitat Mapper. And you can see that the scientists here actually set up a grid on a university campus and collected data using a grid. By applying a research design in the collection of data, that that data there can be downloaded from the GLOBE database and studied as a unit. And maybe some of the outcomes from that study, which is from a data that's been collected using a research design, could be used to inform what we're finding from the broader data set. So that is a really great thing. And I just wanted to show you too, if you have not used the GLOBE Viz before, that you can click on any dot and you can see what kind of data was collected, when it was collected, and you can also take a look at some of the photographs. Photographs are also a different kind of data. But we have 74 countries and 26,000 observations of GLOBE data. So it gets us going really here to be able to do some really important things with this data. But I don't want to wait for the scientists to do it. We can do it as citizen scientists ourselves. This data is available to us. Next picture, please. Great. So I just wanted to show you, I downloaded some data to take a look at it. And just for fun, what I wanted to do is just show you what this data looks like. So what I did was I compared for the last 3 years, the data that came in from Africa, Asia, and the Caribbean. And what you can, and these are the different kinds of water sources for the breeding habitats. And one thing that's really interesting is that discarded items, trash, is the biggest one in Africa and a large one in Asia, but not a big one in the Caribbean. In the Caribbean, most of their work is done using research designs using a mosquito trap. And so that also was another place where we got a lot of data. So yeah, so I just want to show you that we can see patterns already looking at broad regions. We can see that there are differences in the kinds of places that people are finding data. Now, does this mean that, is this a sampling bias, or is this actually what the mosquitoes are using, right? And so that question we can't answer without further research, but it's provocative and it gives us a place to move forward. Okay, next one, please. So we also looked at the different kinds of mosquitoes that were identified. And I wanted to show this to you just to let you know that we really would love people to take that extra step and try and identify mosquitoes. I think a lot of people feel that they don't have a sufficient confidence to report their data. And I want to let you know we're going to be developing AI. We need your pictures. We need you to tell us what you think it is. And you're not going to be giving us bad data. You are going to be giving us data that goes into a data set, which we call inter-rater reliability, right? So don't hesitate to make your best guess based on using the key and looking at the features. But I will tell you here, once again, in the Caribbean, Latin America and the Caribbean, they are actually spending more of their, they are doing more observations where they've actually identified the genus than the other regions to date. So they should feel very proud and happy about that. Okay, next one, please. Okay, so this is just an idea. This is how we put ideas together. But I sat down with the GLOBE Mosquito Habitat Mapper team, and we sort of sat down and said, okay, what are some of the things that we hope that everybody who's using GLOBE data knows? And then how could we test that? And what kind of data could we use? What is a question that you could answer with that data? And what could people create? So anyway, I'm thinking that these core competencies that we have identified here, some of those are going to be the same, data competencies that people have been asking for in the chat. And so I see here that Mike Jabot has said, you know, can you just tell us how to easily download the data? And so we were thinking, yes, how about we show you that today? Okay. So, so if this is our idea, and I would like you to write into the chat if you think this is something that you would think is interesting. So we were thinking of launching data literacy challenges that might go with every webinar, maybe every other webinar, and we would create a we would create a short video challenge where we would show you exactly what to do to master this skill. little tiny chunks. And then once you watch the short video that's 3 to 5 minutes long, then you might spend 10 to 20 minutes actually doing that. And then we would set up a pin board where you could show what you've done and compare it with everybody else. And so so this is our idea. And then we thought maybe then a couple weeks after that, we would just have an informal meetup, not a webinar, but people could just talk about, hey, you know, I tried to do this, but this didn't work. Or I looked at my map and I really thought that the way that Dorian made this map, how did she get those really interesting icons? Because I think that makes it easier to read. So we can begin to share some of these ideas. So, you know, but it's, you know, if we build it and people don't come, it's not useful. And so what we thought was that as a sort of a departure from our having scientists come and tell you really cool things, that we would ask you, would this be something that you would like? Is this something that you could actually, for instance, if you teach a class, if you are teaching a college class and you're working with Globe data, would you actually use these as flipped classroom homework? Or could you use this in your 8th grade class when you are learning about the research process, or you know, the scientific process? Or is this something that you could use if you're teaching computational literacy, for instance, at the high school level? So, you know, we would love it if this was something that we could do with this group, but we would love it if we were creating resources that other people could use in their own teaching and outreach. So please go ahead and pen your ideas in the chat. I'd love to get some feedback. Oh, I love this idea of a hackathon. And that is a really cool idea. That is a really cool idea. And I do know that there's actually a hackathon that's being planned down the road for people that are interested in AI using Globe Mission Mosquito data. So stay tuned for that and we will let you know. This is a little bit less ambitious. What we're talking about here are basic data literacy skills. You know, to go beyond downloading raw data, turning it into a graph and making it, comparing it with something else and making an analysis, but actually working with that data so that it has the quality that you need, it fits the question that you have. All right. Next slide, please. All right, so so now I've been talking this whole time in the hypothetical, but Cassie took the time to create a data challenge. This would be the bargain basement. This is the basic data challenge. So we would actually develop them in a sequence where you sort of progress from doing data visualization using the Globe database to maybe the next time we would use ADAT to download the relational database and then to extract data from a relational database and to make graphs, and then how to manipulate data so that you can get high data quality. But let's take a look at this month's data challenge.
Thanks, Rusty. And as she mentioned, this is the basement level, getting in at the beginning. Since we know that materials are used in informal settings or camps, perhaps you're just looking for a small entry-level point to show kids what you can do with the data that you just collected, for example. The video is actually 2 of them put together for this presentation. One is just kind of an introduction to Globe, and then the second part is the data challenge. So,
and can I also say, Cassie, that what we would like you to do when you watch these, which are the best possible thing that we can come up with on our own, but you might have better ideas, different ways of presenting, and we would love you to put your feedback and your impressions in the chat as you watch it.
and this is that focus group that I mentioned earlier. This is your part now. So, all right, here we go. Globe Mission Mosquito Campaign Data Literacy Series. GLOBE is an acronym for Global Learning and Observations to Benefit the Environment program. It's an international science and education program, and Globe Observer is a citizen science app available on both platforms. The Globe community can collect data to track changes in the environment in support of Earth system science research. This is an open dataset available to scientists and supporting students in doing real scientific research using many Globe protocols. Globe Observer has been contributing data in 5 protocols: clouds, mosquito habitat mapper, land cover, trees, and when we have one, an eclipse, all since 2017. The Globe database has been collecting data for 30-plus protocols for 25 years and has several million observations available to download and analyze at no cost. An introduction to the Globe visualization system. Globe Visualizations provides the ability to view and interact with data measured across the world. This video will cover how to access the Globe visualization tool, a bit about the tools available, how to select Globe protocols to fit our question, and how to create a map using a mosquito dataset from a selected date or date range. First, find the Globe homepage at this URL, www.globe.gov. No login account is needed to access the data, but one is recommended to save data filters. More on this later. From the horizontal menu, hover over Globe data, drop down to the visualization data, and click. The visualization system page is full of great information and additional tutorials for you to explore later. Click Enter the Visualization System blue box to begin. The area highlighted with the red box is the Getting Started section for new users. Layers are the protocols arranged by sphere. Filters are additional parameters. Multi-site plots view that site's information. Choosing the base maps for the data. Question mark is help with Globe Viz. Options to see just your own sites and measurements. Open and close menu window. How many artificial container breeding sites are there for a single date and for a date range? To get started, let's click the protocol layers. Mosquitoes are in the hydrosphere layer and under Mosquito Habitat Mapper. There are 4 options: habitats, genera, breeding sites mitigated, and photos. We'll select habitats. Click the green Submit button. All habitats is the default. However, we want to narrow our selection to artificial containers. How many observations for today are showing on my map? If I'm not able to see, I'll close the window, and I can see that there are 2 for today. To answer the question, how many mosquito observations in artificial containers for a specific day, see the count in the lower left. What if we want to see how many observations were made in the month of July of 2020? Select Data Counts. Select Data Counts and the date range. Data Counts displays the total number of observations for the date period requested. There were 520. Globe Mission Mosquito Bite-Sized Data Literacy Challenges. Putting it all together starts with a question. It could be something like, how many mosquito observations have been collected where you live? Depending upon where you live and how active Globe observers have been, you may have to expand the area to include a state or country. And what data will you use to answer your question? Mosquito Habitat Mapper data with mosquito habitats and using all habitats would be fine for this example. Don't forget, the challenge is to select a potentially active time for mosquitoes, so we'll use August 1st to August 31st of 2020. Next, create your map and screen capture it. If you are using a Mac, Command-Shift-3 for the whole screen or Command-Shift-4 for a selection. If you are using Windows, use Alt-Print Screen button for the entire screen. Save this image to upload to Padlet. Uploading to Padlet uses the URL. If you have a Padlet account, your name will show up. Otherwise, you will be anonymous. Don't worry, we can add your name in the description later. And getting your map into the gallery is easy. Click the red plus in the lower right corner. Title it Data Challenge 1. And in the description, add your name, if you don't have a Padlet account, and location of your challenge map. Click the upload icon on the left, click Pick File, locate your screen capture, click Open, and Padlet does the rest. While you're here, gallery walk and check out the other data challenge submissions. Double-click on the map to make it larger of those you'd like to look at in more detail, and don't forget to add a comment about the map by clicking Add Comments. That's it for our first data challenge. Thank you very much. So we'd like you to submit your data challenge to our Padlet by December 4th, because on December 10th, we'll have a meetup and talk about the process, how it worked for you, if you have any suggestions for changes. But that's where we're at right now.
So if you have any feedback, I want to say that probably most of you, this was a little basic. I mean, and there's also tutorials that are available for on the Globe website. They take a little bit longer, but you know, there's tutorials on how to use the Globe Viz. But we thought this was really the most basic entry point. But in future, you know, in future data bites, we might just say, okay, here's your, you know, how do you find, you know, how do you use the tools that you have to find errors of commission and omission? How do you find duplicates? How do you, you know, determine data quality? And these would be just like these little 5-minute data bites where you would be working with your own data set and, you know, working on it over time. So that's kind of our idea. So we'd love some feedback. So you know, we didn't coordinate on this. You know, we just watched the data challenge and we did it. So Cassie has one where she looked at Texas. I did a different kind of view and made different kinds of comments. Here's Anonymous, who I happen to know is Dorian, you know, and she said she found these are different artificial containers. But, you know, we're all demonstrating that we know how to use the portal. And so, for instance, if you wanted to give this as an activity, you know, for a flipped classroom or something, you could actually find, you know, the data products of students, for instance, you know, on this pinboard, if this is something you'd like to integrate into an activity.
And we thought it would be great for you to gallery walk, to look at each of the maps that people are making, because we all come in at different levels. And so this might be a challenge for somebody just getting started, and putting their map out there is, you know, risk taking for them, or for others of you, it might be just as easy as 5 or 6 clicks away. But put in some comments if you like something. It's kind of like a poster session at an AGU session. And as your maps and projects get more involved and complex and your data sets become different, the gallery walk may or may not be appropriate then, but that's what we're thinking. We also have a 1-page set of directions. Again, depending on what age group you're working with or where you're coming in, just kind of a document to accompany the video, which should explain the challenge in 5 minutes or less.
So here's a list of some of the skills that we were hoping to address. And Cassie, using the miracles of Zoom Science, has created a poll. And we'd love for you to say which one of these you think would be interesting for us to focus on. There are so many different things that are important, and I don't know how many we could do, but I'd love to see what you think is important, or places where you would like to have some support in showing these. So please take the poll.
Are you able to see the results of the poll?
No. I only see the poll.
It
Yeah,
says,
I see the poll.
Oh, hold it.
it says
Nope.
I'm sharing it.
Does anyone else see it? I don't see it.
I do not.
I see it.
You do?
I do. Data
Oh.
discovery, working with a data spreadsheet, role of metadata. I just can't vote.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay.
Okay, well,
Well, let me give you the lowdown, Rusty. 25% say data discovery is important. 25% say working with a data spreadsheet. 13% the role of metadata. 56% data cleaning. 33% data quality. 67% data analysis. 22% statistics. 56% data visualization. 11% data fitness for use, 56% writing reports, 78% creating models using data, 56% making graphs, and 67% making maps, 67% for ethics.
well, great. This is really interesting. And there's some surprises here, but I think this is great. And we would definitely like to do all that.